Something tells me this should be in slow motion. If you aren't plaiting your pork belly this weekend, that should be legal. Let's get into it. Today we're going to make a pork belly plait. Now cooking time for this recipe will be just over 3 hours. Or for those of you who like to use my beer timer, you're looking at a 7 beer cook. Cheers. If you pre-like this video, it's okay. We've all done it once before. To make this recipe, we'll need some pork belly. So off I went to see Mick out at Gippsland Premium Meats and grabbed this 2.2 kilograms of pork belly. And I asked Mick to remove the skin because we won't be needing that for this cook. And what we are left with is a 4 centimetre thick, 20 centimetre wide, 36 centimetre long piece of pork belly. Perfect for making our weave. All you got to do now is grab a sharp knife and we're going to split this belly into 3 even pieces, but making sure not to completely separate them, leaving around 2.5 centimetres at the top still attached. The pork belly plait, braid or weave was made popular around 7 years ago. It saw a rise again about 2 years ago, and once again it's popular. Then once it's all split, transfer it to a baking tray, and now it's time to season it. I'm using a tried and tested award-winning 4 Monkeys pork rub. You can use any pork or barbecue rub that you want. Just make sure to cover every piece of the pork rub, and I like to apply my rubs roughly about 30 centimetres above the meat. This just allows the particles to have time to separate before they hit your meat, and you get much more even coverage. Don't forget the ends. Flip it over and put the rub on this side as well. And then we can shape it into a plait. Now, surely all you guys out there have braided hair before. Starting at the joint end, we're going to bring the left piece and we're going to curve it over. Then we're going to grab the right piece and we're going to curve that over. Then we grab the left piece and we curve that over. And we grab the right piece and we curve that over. And therefore, we have our big plait. But how do we hold together? By using a metal skewer. Coming on one, and then on a second, and then the third. Just to hold it in place while we cook it. And now we're just going to pop this on a wire rack and pop it aside until we are ready to smoke it. If you do share this video, let me know where you're sharing it. I'm actually curious. Today I'm using a 57 centimetre Weber kettle, and I'm going to be utilising the snake method because I want to be smoking at temps of 135 degrees Celsius today. How I'll do that is by carefully stacking a row of briquettes around the outer edge of the charcoal grate, then making a secondary row right next to it, and as you can see they're all on an angle leaning on each other, and then finishing this off with a row on top. And then I'll add 12 briquettes to a chimney starter and light them up, and once they're fully ashed over, I'll dump them on one end of the snake, and that's going to act like a fuse. I'll then add a couple of chunks of cherry wood around the snake, and I'm going to leave a gap of around 50 mil in between them because wood burns quicker than charcoal. If you let the wood pieces touch, they're going to make your snake burn a lot hotter and quicker than you want it to. Now you will see small spikes in temp as that snake reaches those pieces of wood, and that's quite normal, and it will settle back down. Now don't forget to add a drip pan because this pork's going to ooze out more juice than your secret sock. Smacked! I'll carefully put the grill back in and pop the lid on, and we're going to make sure the vents are all wide open. And our lid vent is on the opposite side of our lit fuel. And once our temp gets around 50 degrees Celsius off our target temp of 135 degrees Celsius, we're going to close down the bowl vent to about halfway. Our temp will keep rising, but it will slow down because we're choking off the oxygen supply to that fuel. And it should settle on our target temp. And then once our temp is stable for 30 minutes, we can put our meat in. For those that don't know, a secret sock is a single man's best friend. The Weber's been stable for 30 minutes, so we can get this in that. Insert an internal meat probe into the pork plait before it goes into the Weber. Place the tray on the opposite side of the lit fuel, placing the lid back on, making sure that lid vent is on the opposite side of that lit fuel. This will ensure that heat and smoke is drawn up and over and around our food. We're going to let that bake away for around 3 hours, or until we reach an internal temp of 90 degrees Celsius. The timing will purely depend on the size of your pork belly. And when the internal temp does reach 90 degrees Celsius, this is that point when collagen turns to gelatin and softens up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do it now. It's okay, I can wait. If you said it was time to get saucy, you'd be correct. Because we need a glaze for the final part of the cook. So when the internal temp of that pork reaches around 85 degrees Celsius, we can start making our glaze up. So into a small saucepan, you want to add 1/3 of a cup of your favourite barbecue sauce. I'm using the Feedlot Ranch Hand. 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 1 tablespoon of honey, and 3 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Then heat this up over a low heat while stirring continuously. After a few minutes, it should have all warmed up and all the sugar should have dissolved, and you can remove it from the heat. You never want to add a cold glaze to warm meat. It's going to lower the temp of your meat, and it just means you're going to have to wait longer to eat it. And no one wants that. If you didn't know, while the snake burns around, we need to move the lid and the vent. And this is just to ensure we keep our meat and that lid vent on the opposite side of the lit fuel for the entire cook. So we'll just adjust the grill a little bit and pop the lid back on, keeping that lid vent on the opposite side of that lit fuel. And when using the snake method, I'll normally adjust the lid and the grill about every hour. Comment below if you'd like to see more cooks like this. The internal temp of that pork belly has reached 90 degrees Celsius. So you know what that means. We can grab it out of the Weber, remove the thermometer, and glaze it up. Don't be shy, get it all over there. We're going to pop that back in the Weber to tack up, pop the lid back on, and we're not going to leave it in there for too long. The high content of sugar in that glaze is going to burn if we subject it to heat for too long. So 10 minutes is more than enough time. You see it so many times. People spending hours smoking meat and then ruin it when it comes to glazing. They put the glaze on, pop it back in the smoker and leave it way too long, and that glaze burns. Glaze and sauces are generally high in sugar, and left in heat for a long time, it's always going to burn. I want to add some texture to this pork belly plait. What better way than with some soft, buttery, crunchy pork crackle? You can buy pork crackle pre-done pretty much everywhere these days. Just open up the bags to allow the air out, and then we just need to crunch up these larger pieces of pork crackle by folding over that opened end so we don't lose anything. And we're just going to smash them into smaller fragments. And this is going to be perfect for our crunchy topping. The glaze has had 10 minutes to set, so we can get the pork belly plait out of the Weber. How good does that look? We can transfer this to a cutting board and remove that skewer. And we're just going to sprinkle this with the pork crackly crunch. Barbecue never looked so good. And using a large knife, now all we're going to do is slice it up. Oh, look how moist that is. Smack! There's nothing left to do but eat it. Oh.